Well, this is Eric Loyd, master student in psychology. I wanted to continue reading this book here, Real Magic by Dean Radin, PhD. Ancient Wisdom, Modern Science, and a Guide to the Secret Power of the Universe. I was going to continue reading, or I am going to continue reading Scientific Evidence, Chapter 6. It starts with a quote by Arthur C. Clarke. The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. I left off at Force of Will on page 100. Quantum Consciousness. A February 2017 Big Questions article in the BBC's online magazine, BBC Earth, was on the topic of the strange link between the human mind and quantum physics. It revealed the observer effect in quantum mechanics, whereby observing an elementary quantum object, such as a photon or an electron, affects its behavior. This shyness effect, which is well accepted in physics, but still quite mysterious, is thought by some to have something to do with consciousness. The BBC article describes that possibility, but then disparages what it calls the New Age cottage industry for using quantum concepts to support ideas like psychic phenomena. The popular association between what skeptics have labeled quantum flapdoodle and the actual quantum physics makes it difficult for legitimate scientists interested in the observer effect to propound on its implications. But not everyone is so reticent. Adrian Kent is a respected professor of quantum physics at the University of Cambridge. In an interview with BBC, Kent proposed that it might be possible that consciousness affects the behavior of quantum systems, and that someday it might even be possible to detect such effects in laboratory experiments. He then went out on a limb and cautiously predicted that there might be a 15% chance that his proposal was correct and a 3% chance that this would be confirmed within the next half century. That's very exciting. It's too bad we have to wait 50 years to learn if consciousness is related to physics. Then again, maybe we don't have to wait that long. We've already seen that one of the Six Sigma classes of psi experiments involves testing the effect of intention on RNGs, random number generators, where the randomness is based on quantum properties. Hundreds of such experiments have been published since the 1960s. In 2003, the effect was even successfully replicated by a staunch skeptic. Now that sounds like an experiment that I'd like to be a part of or conduct or have some role in. Starting in 2008, my colleagues and I began a series of experiments to look more closely at the quantum observer effect. In journals including physics essays and quantum biosystems, we described 17 experiments using various types of optical systems to test, as Adrian Kent proposed, whether consciousness would affect the behavior of quantum systems in a detectable way. Most of our experiments used double-slit optical systems. These are elegantly simple devices used extensively in physics to explore the quantum nature of photons, particles of light. They consist of a source of light, two tiny parallel slits that light can pass through, and a camera that records the resulting pattern of light. The source of light might be an incandescent light bulb or a laser, both of which can produce umpteen trillions of photons per second. Umpteen trillion photons per second. Or it might be a fancier arrangement that's designed to generate one photon at a time. The two slits in our optical setups were about 200 microns, millionths of a meter apart. And each slit was about 10 microns wide. Micron is about the size of a neuron. in the brain. There's about 100 billion neurons in the brain, and about a trillion or so cells in the entire body. The camera can be a high-resolution digital camera, or it might be a device called a line camera, which has a line of sensors all in a row, each of which is extremely sensitive to variations in light intensity. The reason this simple setup is so popular is because it's easy to mathematically describe the behavior of light in the apparatus, and also because it's a convenient way to demonstrate the quantum observer effect. This effect refers to the fact that the light pattern produced by this apparatus differs depending on whether one knows or can know in principle if the photons pass through the left slit or the right slit. If you know, then the pattern the camera sees is what one would expect if the photons were acting like tiny little particles. If you don't know, then the pattern looks like the photons were behaving like waves. Many people may have seen that animation on YouTube. Physics animation, the double slit experiment. But if you don't know, then the pattern looks like the photons were behaving like waves. This wave-like versus particle-like difference suggests that there is something peculiar about the role of observation, and that strangeness opens the door to the possibility that consciousness and the physical world might interact in fundamental ways. Overall, our experiment suggests that what Adrian Kent was pondering is in fact true. The overall odds chance in our series of studies range from a conservative 27,000 to 1 to a liberal 17 trillion to 1, depending on the assumptions used when combining the experimental results. I don't know, I haven't looked at the data. It might be a post hoc meta-analysis that they used. Post hoc analysis for a meta-analytic study. Overall, for our double slit systems, 4 of our double slit systems used continuous beam lasers as the source of photons. One used a light source that produced 1 photon at a time. We even ran a series of experiments over the internet to study the role of distance between the participants and the optical system. More than 1,500 people participated in that study over the course of 3 years. Some were as far as 18,000 kilometers away from our laboratory. 18,000 kilometers. 5K is about 3.2 miles. We found that the distance between the participants and the optical systems didn't matter. The average effects were the same, regardless of distance. 2 independent physicists reviewed our raw data from these experiments, and both confirmed that our reported results were correct. Of greater significance, a series of independent replications of our work by a physicist at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil were highly successful. A talk I gave at a conference in April 2016 that summarized our 17 studies was posted on YouTube, and as of July 2017, it had been viewed over 500,000 times. The role of resonance, page 103. A series of experiments at the University of Edinburgh in the 1970s and 1980s used RNGs, random number generators, to explore mind-matter interactions. Participants were asked what kinds of mental strategies they used and which ones produced the best outcomes. The most successful participants reported that a subjective sense of resonance, or feeling at one with the RNG, was the key factor. Another was the paradoxical concept of effortless striving. This means you must absolutely want the desired outcome more than anything you've ever desired. A passionate, obsessive, overwhelming desire. But at exactly the same time, you must also maintain zero anxiety about it. This contradictory state is by no means easy to achieve. but it does bear similarity to the states that can be achieved in meditation, visualization exercises, and focused concentration. Of the different intentional strategies participants used in RNG studies, the most successful in terms of their actual performance were in decreasing order, resonance, then asking entities, spirits or angels for assistance, using emotion to help power the will, one-pointed concentration, physical relaxation, visual imagery, and finally, talking to the RNG as though it were a sentient creature, much as children might talk to their teddy bears, or as a car mechanic might talk to a misbehaving engine. Princeton University's PEAR Laboratory, PEAR, active from 1979 to 2007, conducted a long series of RNG studies, and they too asked the participants what strategies they were using when they got the best response from the RNG, the random number generator. Their comments were similar to those found at Edinburgh. A state of immersion in the process which leads to a loss of awareness of myself and the immediate surroundings. I'm assuming in the zone is what they would call it psychologically. Similar to the experience of being absorbed in a game, a book, theatrical performance, or some creative occupation. I don't feel any direct control over the device, more like a marginal influence when I'm in resonance with the machine. It's like being in a canoe. When it goes where I want, I flow with it. When it doesn't, I try to break the flow and give it a chance to get back in resonance with me. A third series of experiments using RNGs explored the role of absorption in more detail. This refers to a state of mind where the distinction between oneself and the RNG dissolves. Psychologist Lonnie Nielsen, then at the University of Arizona, explored how the subjective depth of absorption affected psi performance. He consistently found a positive relationship between his influence of the RNG and the depth of absorption. He concluded, the results are consistent with the hypothesis that states of absorption associated with changes in perception of time and experience of trance-like awareness are associated with replicable alterations in an electromagnetically shielded REG device. In sum, laboratory observations and experiments indicate that experiences described as resonance, absorption, and effortless striving are all associated with improved performance in intentional tasks. These experiences are in alignment with a key goal in magical practice, especially for spellcasting and other intentional acts of working from a state of consciousness that sees through the illusion of separateness. Blessed chocolate. In the ritual of the Eucharist, a Catholic priest is said to be the instrument through which the power of the Holy Spirit transforms bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. For the devout, this act, called transubstantiation, is not just a symbolic act. It's a genuine miracle, an act of pure magic. The act of blessing water, wine, and bread plays a dominant role in many religious rituals, and the practice of offering a toast with food or drink is universal. Prost. On occasion, consuming blessed food or water is said to result in remarkable healings. The conventional explanation for such reports is that belief becomes biology, that is, that any such healings are due to the placebo effect. There's another possibility. Blessed food may be regarded as a magical expression of the force of will, that is, one common type of food blessing is an expression of gratitude for the plants or animals sacrificed on your behalf. But another type includes the intention that the food about to be consumed is safe and nourishing. If you haven't thought much about the second type of blessing, you may want to spend a few hours learning about food-borne diseases and then read the health inspection reports of your favorite restaurants. Then again, perhaps you shouldn't. because according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 200 known diseases are transmitted through food, and bad food causes an estimated 76 million illnesses, 325,000 hospitalizations, and 5,000 deaths every year in the United States alone. In other words, it goes beyond mere academic interest to wonder if intentionally blessing your food may prevent your delicious restaurant meal from accidentally killing you. To find out, we conducted a double-blind experiment to see if beneficial intentions, a blessing directed toward chocolate, would elevate the mood of the people who ate it, more than the exact same chocolate that wasn't blessed. Okay, more than the exact same chocolate that was not blessed. This is not like testing if a blessed salmonella can be magically cured of its toxic effects. But you've got to start somewhere without putting people at risk. A double-blind design is used to offset ordinary inspection of effects. So if we see an interesting result, we'll know that it's not due to the placebo effect. We used dark chocolate for the test substance, partially because it's one of the most craved foods in the world, and also because chocolate is a mild stimulant. Dark chocolate's bittersweet taste, creamy texture, and sensuous aroma, combined with its unique biochemistry, are known to produce short-term elevations in mood. We want to know if a blessing would further increase those mood-enhancing properties. The study was designed for 60 participants, 15 assigned to each of the 4 groups. Most of our recruits lived in San Francisco and the San Francisco Bay Area. It's good it's more than 30. Each was told that he or she would be randomly assigned to receive a small amount of a blessed or unblessed dark chocolate, all from the same source. The intention applied to the treated chocolate was encapsulated into a specific statement. An individual who consumes this chocolate will manifest optimal health and functioning at physical, emotional, and mental levels, and in particular, will enjoy an increased sense of energy, vigor, and well-being. We didn't tell the participants exactly how those intentions would be applied to the chocolate. Unlike many experiments we've conducted, as soon as people learned that we were recruiting volunteers to eat a gourmet brand of chocolate as part of an experiment, they told their friends. It didn't take long before we were overwhelmed with enthusiastic volunteers. They're not called chocoholics for nothing. After we selected the participants, we randomly assigned them to the 4 groups, balanced by age, gender, and the average amount of chocolate that each participant consumed per week. Then we asked each person to fill out a personality questionnaire and gave them 7 blank copies of a standardized mood questionnaire along with 6 half-ounce packages of dark chocolate. They filled out the personality questionnaire on day 1 of the test, and then during each evening over the next 7 days, they filled out the mood questionnaires based on their self-assessment. On days 3, 4, and 5 of the week-long test, they were asked to eat a half-ounce package of chocolate at 10 a.m. and another at 3 p.m. Sounds yummy. They were requested to mindfully savor each piece and pay attention to their experience. At the end of the week, they sent the completed questionnaires back to us. Mood is known to be influenced by the personality factor of neuroticism, a hardwired tendency toward anxiety or depression. It's a little bit more than that, but it's good enough. People rated high on neuroticism experience stronger mood swings than people with lower neuroticism. We measured this factor in each person and balanced the average level of neuroticism among the 4 groups to create the statistical equivalence of a level playing field. 3 different methods were used to bless the chocolate. A pair of senior Buddhist monks, an electric device imprinted by 6 experienced meditators, and a ritual performed by an experienced Mongolian shaman. A 4th group, the control group, was given the same chocolate from the same source, but it wasn't blessed. The experiment took place 1 week in October of 2006, with nearly all of the participants recruited from San Francisco Bay Area. the timing and location of the experiment were constrained to reduce local environmental effects on mood. A total of 62 people completed all phases of the study. What we found was that by the third day of eating chocolate, the average mood measure had improved more in the groups eating the blessed chocolate than in the control group, with odds against chance of 24-1. While this outcome is only modestly significant from a statistical perspective, it suggested that based on the gold standard design for conducting clinical tests, a double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized trial, the blessed chocolate altered subjective mood in a positive way. It's pretty interesting. Then we analyzed a subset of individuals who consumed less than the overall average of 3.2 ounces of chocolate per week. This is why we asked each person how much chocolate they ate during an average week. We examined the results of this low chocolate group because we posited that people who habitually ate a lot of chocolate might not show an effect by eating a little more, whereas people who did not eat much chocolate might be more sensitive to the blessing. This subset of non-chocoholics did indeed show a much stronger improvement in mood, with odds against chance of 10,000-1. From a skeptical perspective, the results of this experiment are explainable only as a flaw or a fluke. The use of the gold standard protocol argues against its being a flaw, and the very strong results observed with the subset of people who didn't eat much chocolate argues against the fluke. Still, many scientists might find it difficult to believe that eating intentionally blessed chocolate would do anything other than make you gain weight. But when we shift our perspective to a magical worldview, where consciousness affects the physical world, this study outcome isn't surprising at all. A magician might only wonder why the effect we obtained wasn't even stronger. The next part would be cryptochrome. The experiment, sheep and goats, blessed tea, got psi, several results from the studies, a disturbance in the force, meta-analysis, voodoo, more results. They actually show the graphs here of the results, and it ends at page 168. And then it starts again with chapter 7, Merlin class magicians. That's all I'll read for today. I don't want to make the videos too long. Page 109 is where we left off. Real Magic, Dean Radin, PhD. Thank you for your time.